Hey guys, I'm Nick and welcome to Sci-Finatics monthly live stream. As always, I am joined by my esteemed colleague I should say, it's Ketwolski.
Hey man, how's it going?
I'm doing pretty well. How are you going, mate?
Doing great, man. Enjoying the weekend, just relaxing, hanging out, enjoying the new year. 2021, this is our first stream in 2021.
Yeah, hey, it is. Okay. Let's hope 2021 is a bit better year than 2020 for us all. I think 2020 we all struggled a little bit, didn't we?
It was a tough year.
Yeah.
It was a tough year. Hopefully by the end of this year we'll look back and be like, I'm so glad this was much better.
Absolutely.
I don't know if it could get any worse, so hopefully this is going to be a good year. That's it, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So today, obviously, we'll be having a chat about various different Star Trek things, including recapping and our overall reactions and impressions to Discovery Season 3, and also what we've got coming up in 2021 and probably 2022, to be honest, with all the different incarnations of various different Star Trek shows and other sci-fi shows that are going to be on air this year. So welcome Chuck A and anybody else, Glenn and everybody else who's viewing the live stream. And for starters, I think we when we last spoke, I think it was around episode 10 or thereabouts of Discovery Season 3, and we were kind of going over the topics of whether or not Discovery had grown its beard or not. Now that the season is all played out and we've got our 13 episodes in the can and all viewed, what are our overall impressions of Season 3? Do you think it was better than Season 2? Do you think it was worse than Season 2? On par with Season 2? What are your impressions?
I would say that. So, for those of you who haven't seen my reviews on the season overall, I personally separated the construct of the mystery box that is the burn from the rest of the season. And the reason I did that, for those of you that don't know, is I felt like the burn was so disconnected from a lot of what was going on in the majority of like the first 10 episodes, So it was like what happened with what happened with the burn, I felt like weighed the rest of what was a really solid season down, and I actually wish that construct wasn't even there, because everything else I actually thought was really good. So if you look at it from a perspective of without the burn, there, and focusing just on the characters and the episodes that we got, focused on our characters and the world building that they did this far into the future and all the fun things that they were doing this far into the future.
Yep.
I would say that, yes, the show did in fact grow its beard. Now, to your question of do I think it was better than Season 2? I would say that it's almost impossible to tell that answer the more I think about it, because they're so wildly different in tones and style, But yeah, so that's I feel like it's unfair to compare the two, because it's just different. They're just so different with what they were trying to do.
And I think talking about the whole mystery box element of the burn and everything, I think if you're going to do a show that relies on the technique of the mystery box to draw us all in as viewers,
yes,
you want to make sure whatever the payoff for that is going to be is, excuse my French, fucking fantastic. It has to be mind blowing. It has to be. is us as audience members have to just sit there going, oh my God, and as you very eloquently pointed out in one of your videos, you have to make sure that all the little clues that are sprinkled along the way, you can see as an audience member, oh yes, that connected to that and that connected to that. And oh my God, now that I know what the answer is, I can completely see how we got there.
Now, I'll say it. Not every single story has to be told that way, but I would say if you're not we're not trying to make groundbreaking science fiction. The story needs to be entertaining and engaging, and then have a satisfactory payoff. And
Absolutely.
It's simple storytelling techniques that like the breadcrumb thing, allow the viewer to engage in the investigation and be engaged with the episodes that are happening in the season, but then for them to just be like, actually, it was this thing that no one could have ever guessed because we never alluded to it at all. That is attempting to go for a really highbrow storytelling device that just fell flat because they were giving us all these breadcrumbs, making it seem like we were on an investigation when we weren't.
Yes.
We weren't at all. We were just doing nothing, I guess. Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much, Amir, for your super chat there. The burn was caused by a person who was transformed in a comic book-like fashion.
I don't want to say that because I feel like my personal opinion on that is that's a little bit undercutting for all the other weird stuff that happens inside Star Trek in general. People just have weird abilities. Look at Q. Q is literally the Q in general are literal gods that can do anything that they want. And it's I don't think that they're comic book characters. I wouldn't say that. I think that's unfair. Personally, I think it's unfair to say that.
But yeah, look, in terms of the whole beard element of season 3, I think there was certainly some elements of season 3 that did grow the beard, that did work very well. And look, one element that I think they did a good job in season 3 that hadn't really been covered to a great extent in the previous seasons is that sense of family and camaraderie amongst the bridge crew. 12 months ago, or whatever it was, when, we were watching season 2, I'm pretty certain that I got to the end of season 2 and I still didn't know the names of half of those bridge crew members. It's they, whereas I certainly felt by the end of season 3 that our characters on the bridge, we kind of learnt about them a bit more. We got to know them a bit more. And I think that was what I think was missing in Discovery. I think all other Star Trek series that preceded Discovery, there's that sense of family. There's that sense of camaraderie amongst the crew. And I don't think Discovery had that until season 3. It was just okay, it's kind of it's the Burnham and Saru and Stamets and Tilly show, and there's just a bunch of other people who happen to be on the bridge that are kind of driving the ship, but we don't really know much about them at all.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think they rectified. And I think they rectified that in season 3.
They did, man. They really did. They really, especially at the beginning of this season, they spent an enormous amount of time working with our crews, and they very smartly, whichever writer or producer thought of this in their minds and made them write this up, they very smartly shifted Culber into this kind of ship's counselor kind of role, which allowed more of a focal point for him to then engage in emotional conversations with some of the other bridge crew members. And I thought that was really smart. And then, I could physically describe what the crew looked like prior to season 3, but I didn't really know too much about them. But now we know a lot about the crew. In a good way. It could definitely start to feel a little bit bloated to some people, but there's just a lot of characters on there, and I think it's good that we have kind of two groups. We have kind of our background characters who we know the names of and a little bit about, and then we have our main characters who we know their names and we know quite a bit about. And that's good because now both groups are kind of supporting each other, and then they could interchangeably add in these supporting characters into the main characters' plots, and it doesn't feel like they're walking around with a random red shirt, So it's
absolutely.
It works. It really does. That I think people overlook that, the importance of the sequence where Saru was having the dinner and the awkwardness that's there and the tension.
Yeah, it's like that awkward sort of family Christmas dinner where the uncle gets drunk and starts abusing somebody or whatever.
Right.
But speaking about Culber just before, as you did, one good thing I think that they did definitely Culber got more of a he got to be more of a doctor, I think, in season 3. I think before season 3. He was just the partner of Stamets, and occasionally maybe he did some stuff in sickbay, but the large majority I felt of Culber's screen time was dedicated towards him being the partner of Stamets, not being the chief medical officer on board the Discovery. And I think he got to go away on some more away missions. He got to, as you say, play ship's counsel a bit more in season 3. So I think they definitely developed that character a little bit more in this season.
I agree. I think that I think it worked really well. I feel like they really allowed his character to kind of come into his own in this season. I said that during my finale review, which is honestly the most standout character for this season for me is Culber, because his character changed the most and it made the most sense. And I like how his arc of feeling lost and disconnected, which was kind of like the second half of season 2 when they saved him from the mycelial network.
Yep.
I like that they were like, okay, we're just going to drop that, essentially. We're going to drop his feelings of his angst, and he's going to use that as a tool, a therapeutic tool, to help the other crew members kind of deal with the realities that they're facing. And I think, again, like I said, whatever writer or producer, whatever came up with that idea, they deserve a raise, because that was a very smart thing to do, and I thought it worked.
It needed to happen. It needed to happen for that character. Yeah, I think you're right. And I wonder, they didn't really give us a definitive answer. But what do you, obviously with Burnham being promoted to captain at the end of the season, there was no, and it would appear like Tilly has moved back to her kind of perhaps science officer role on the bridge. I didn't get the impression that she is maintaining a first officer kind of position, because I think originally in that scene they had her in a red 32nd century uniform, but they changed the color of the stripe to green to represent science division.
No, it was blue. Yeah,
blue. Yes.
Yeah, to blue. Yeah, they definitely changed it digitally after the fact. Yeah, for sure.
Which then, I guess, begs the question: is who is going to be our first officer for season 4? Are they going to get a new? Do you think they're going to get a new character on board? I was in one of my videos, I was sort of saying they need like a Shelby, like from Best of Both Worlds, like somebody from the 32nd century to come in and like a Shelby-like character to come in and stir it up a bit.
I disagree with that. I thought they should have done that to begin with. I thought that would have been a fun dynamic shift on the bridge. So here's the thing, and they haven't officially acknowledged this, but if you freeze frame the shot of Tilly right at the end there, her badge that she's wearing does have lieutenant on there. So they haven't acknowledged if she has been promoted yet officially. So it is possible that she will retain her XO position. I think it's possible. I think they left it open just for that specific reason, that they just haven't quite figured out the answer as to what they really, really want to do yet. So they left it open so that they could figure out, kind of similar to the way that they left it open-ended at the end of season 2 with them assigning the role of captain. They kind of left it a little bit open-ended to kind of leave open the question to get us all talking, but also because they haven't figured out how they want to present that to the audience yet. So I think there's a possibility that she will be promoted to lieutenant and that she will retain her XO kind of role. Or maybe she might get put into second officer position and they can bring in a new character to be the first officer, which would also be really good. So yeah, I don't know yet. It's interesting though. Yeah.
Thank you so much for the super chat, Good Tea Nice House, who says, I wouldn't say they grew a beard, but rather a 5 o'clock shadow. Not sold on 32nd century yet. Burn was a letdown, but overall storytelling much better. Yeah, that's a fair comment.
That's a fair comment. Yep.
Yeah. But yeah, I think one issue I think this Discovery crew has, as opposed to say the Next Generation crew, is that the Discovery crew seems to have an overabundance of low-ranking officers, your ensigns, your lieutenants, and so forth, and there's no kind of clear person who stands out amongst the rest, who would be an obvious choice for first officer. Whereas on, say, Next Generation, everybody was like lieutenant commander. You had Worf and Data and Geordi, and they were all lieutenant commanders. So it's like any one of those guys could have kind of been first officer. Whereas on Discovery, it feels like the majority of the crew are more junior officers, and sort of nobody is really completely qualified for the role. You know what I mean?
Not that we're aware of, I totally get what you're saying there, and I get that was kind of the original focus of the show, right? It was, we're not going to necessarily follow the captain and really the bridge crew. It was supposed to be about, like the first officer / second officer, and then everybody else that works on the ship. That was the original way that they sold Discovery. Obviously, it has shifted substantially since then. Mm-hmm. I think it is possible now with Burnham in the captain's chair. And because our show is primarily from the point of view of Michael Burnham. We spend the majority of the time with Michael Burnham. So with her character now being rooted on the chair, I feel like we're going to get a lot more interaction specifically with the bridge crew. And I think it's going to shift to a little bit more of a classic Trek dynamic now that our main POV characters, beyond Stamets, who doesn't spend too much time really on the bridge, beyond him, I think that most of our characters are on the bridge now. Like we're going to have, like Booker's going to be on the bridge. Yes. She's going to be on the bridge. Tilly's on the bridge now. All of our supporting bridge crew members are there. So a lot of the main cast members are on the bridge. So I think we're going to start to see a little bit more of a shift there so that, I feel like those roles are going to start to fill out a little bit better. I do think that's what's going to happen. And I would like it to be where we go into next season where they do have some of the 32nd century officers from Starfleet serving on board the Discovery, that it's not just exclusively the old school Discovery people, because obviously they just got out of their huge giant battle at the end of season 2. Then they immediately went into this burn crisis. And then now they immediately got out of this fight with Osira. Surely some of the crew has died.
Yes.
So they probably need some replacement.
Yeah, like I wasn't even, I think someone pointed out to me in a comment that the character of Octopus Head, or was it Osnullis or whatever, on the bridge, was seen in a background shot being dragged away dead or whatever. I was like, they didn't even cover that at all,
I mean, he could have been stunned. Yeah, yes. But that's the thing, is they probably need some 32nd century people onto the ship, which would be a lot of fun. I think that would be fun to kind of freshen things up and to kind of provide different perspectives, especially if they want to put Tilly in like a second officer role, and then they bring in, one of these, boss ass 32nd century officers that, Vance recommends, puts him or her or whomever and, onto the bridge, and they're working with the crew there. I think that would be a lot of fun. I think that'd be a lot of fun. Sure.
Thank you, Amir, again for the super chat. He says Ketwolski is going to hate this. Okay. Do you think the fact history didn't change when Philippa was sent back meant she was supposed to go back and she created another incursion in the timeline?
Do you think the fact that history didn't change when Philippa was sent back meant she was supposed to go back, or she created another incursion in the timeline? So, Amir, you're going to get a little bit of a preview here for some of my theories about Section 31, that video that I'm working on, which is, I personally think that characters such as Admiral Vance and, Cronenberg, Kovich, who may or may not be the Federation president, I think that they were fully aware of the fact that Georgiou had already gone back in time, that they ran her file, and the Federation was tracking the fact that she had returned from the future to work with Section 31, but they did not disclose it to the Discovery because of the fact that they are very super serious about, the whole timeline interference because of the temporal Cold Wars. And the reason I bring that up is because when Vance, right before they left to go see the Guardian, Vance said very specifically and kind of almost weirdly to Burnham, he was like, are you going to be able to give her up this time? Are you going to be able to do this? Almost like he knew what was going to happen. And so I personally think that, yes, it didn't change anything because it had already occurred, and that was already a part of the timeline that they were in. The Discovery crew didn't know that it had already happened, but Vance and Cronenberg were already aware of it. That's what I think.
Interesting theory. And I think that's a solid theory. Thank you, Torrin, for the super chat. Would you like to see a pie chart with instances of Burnham following orders versus disobeying orders. Not an issue moving forward since she's in charge. And just to add a point on that, I think the question needs to be asked: did Burnham earn her based on her instances in season 3 of disobeying orders and being knocked back from being first officer? Do we think that Burnham earned her captain's position at the end of the season?
So, I mean, I'll say this is I felt like the setup for her character arc of getting back into the good graces of Starfleet was done very well. They set it up that she was feeling very disjointed, that she talked about it with Book, she talked about it with Saru, she talked about it with Philippa, she talked about it with her mom. They set that up very well. I also think that the end with her defeating Osira, getting together with, getting the Navarre fleet to show up and really resolving the issue of the burn for the entire galaxy and putting the needs of the ship first, I felt was a way of her redeeming herself in order to kind of get that captain's chair. The issue that I have is that from the beginning of the season to the end of the season, that felt rushed. Kind of.
Indeed, I completely agree with you, and it felt like to me that seemed like it was about a season too early. It was my reaction. It felt like Saru's only just got promoted to the captain's chair in season 3. I think it would have been nice to see that continue a little more into season 4, and then maybe for her to be promoted to captain at the end of season 4. I think it to me it felt a little bit, based on what had gone down in season 3. That ending and where she ended up felt a little bit on the rushed side to me. Like this is a plot. A plot point or a story dynamic that is feeling a little bit early in the narrative to me. I'm not sure whether you had that same feeling or not.
I did. It did feel like the way that they established the show. It was clear that Burnham's overall arc from being a mutineer, from episode 1 of season 1, was going to go from that role to being a captain of the Discovery. Like that was her character arc for this show of Discovery, was to get her into the captain's chair. That's very obvious. I felt like it was going to happen at the end. Like that was going to be the series finale with her finally getting the captain's chair. And then that was going to be like the final sequence of her getting the chair.
Yes.
I'm not against her getting the chair by any means, but I do agree. Like it did feel a little bit rushed. Ironically, I felt like if she had gone with Georgiou into this vision that the Guardian, or this alternate reality, essentially, that the Guardian sent Georgiou into, if Michael Burnham had gone with her to experience those things and kind of maybe learn some lessons there with her, I felt like I would feel like when she returned from that planet and she had learned this lesson, that would have, in her mind, would have taken, I think it was like, 3 months or something like that. She would have been like, oh yeah, I actually learned a very powerful lesson. And then we as the audience would have connected a little bit more to her character change, because right after Georgiou left, it was suddenly she was back on it. She was Starfleet all the way. She was, reblued, as they say, and she was ready to go. So I felt like if they had worked her into this vision of Georgiou and maybe seen what, her mirrored universe counterpart was capable of, and what that universe was like, and stepping into those roles as a captain or somebody like that in the mirror universe, I feel like that would have allowed her to kind of grow a little bit in that space, and it would have felt natural, because it supposedly took 3 months, as opposed to it being one episode, just a few moments for her, and then she beams back to the ship and she's like, I'm ready. Starfleet all the time. I'm not leaving,
Exactly.
So
yeah. And I think the other thing, or the impression that I got from various comments and so forth, is that maybe people are a little bit disappointed that it shouldn't have taken Saru being sidelined for Burnham to make the captain's chair. Because obviously there's a little bit of a different direction, it would appear, that's going on with Saru in season 4. And based on, I'm not sure whether you caught my interview with Doug Jones a couple of weeks ago or whatever it was. But Doug's he's only just getting back into the shooting process now. So when I had a chat to him in the interview, he was actually in a Toronto hotel doing 2 weeks of hotel quarantine before he could get back into shooting. But I believe the Discovery production schedule for season 4 has already been going on for
Yes.
a month or two, which would seem to imply to me, if Doug Jones is only literally just in hotel quarantine, like whatever it was 2 weeks ago, and he's only just literally walking onto set now, that he may not even, his character might not even be in like the first 3 episodes of the new season.
Well, they, I don't know. I mean, they shoot things. Sometimes they like to shoot episodes. I know that they try, but COVID could definitely cause a huge upset. Previously, what they've tried to do for Picard and for Discovery is try to shoot the episodes in about 2 weeks. So they do an episode, an episode, and an episode. So normally I would say that you were probably right, that he may not actually be there. But because COVID, they may be jumbling the sequences up a little bit more in order to deal with those regulations and the safety guidelines.
True.
What I'm hoping happens is that, and this would be freaking cool, is that they really lean in to Saru being the ambassador from Kaminar onto the Federation and being a part of the Federation Council, and we get to start seeing some of the political kind of inner workings of how the Federation works, and they fully lean into that. That would be freaking cool because we don't see that. We see a little bit of the president, a little bit of the council, a little bit of the CNC. We don't get to see how the Federation Council actually functions. And I think it would be cool if they used his character in that way, because he's then our point of view into what's going on back at Starfleet HQ while Burnham and the Discovery are off doing the adventures. And so I hope they do that. That's what I hope for.
I think that could be a solid and interesting dynamic. And I think that would also, there was a little bit of a hint from Doug that there might be some romance in the air between him and President, what's her name, Tarina of Navarre?
Of Navarre? I don't know if that was... So I don't know if that was just the way that they shot the sequence. The way, looking at it again, because I've watched the season through again, I definitely get that. When I first watched it, I for sure saw that romantic vibe. But now that he's the ambassador to the Federation, the ambassador, like this ambassador role at Kaminar or whatever, I'm looking at it from a perspective like maybe they were just shooting it in a weird way, that maybe they were just trying to showcase his natural abilities as being a good negotiator and an ambassador. And it just kind of felt a little romantic to us because we didn't have any other context to put it in. But yeah, I definitely got that vibe. I got the vibe. I'm not gonna lie. I got the vibe. He was trying to, give her a little bit of the Kelpian. I don't know what that would be over there.
Yeah.
Interspecies relationships. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So like 2021 seems to be a year where we have more Star Trek shows in the pipeline than ever before. We've got Discovery Season 4 shooting. We've got Strange New World Season 1 shooting. We've got Picard Season 2 shooting. We've got Lower Deck Season 2 in production. We've got Prodigy Season 1 in production. We've got Section 31 and one potentially untitled or unannounced show in production. Yet, because of the pandemic and whatnot, it could conceivably be, the end of this year before we get any new, Star Trek content on it. I think, what would you say? I think we're most likely to get Lower Deck Season 2 first up, based on the fact that they were rolling straight into the production of that without even stopping at the end of Season 1. And the fact that actors, are recording their voiceover lines in their cupboards full of pillows and doonas and whatnot at home, whilst the animators sit at their computers at home and do their work. So I think the animated Trek shows would most logically, I think, be the next off the production line for this year. Would you tend to agree with that?
I would, yeah. I when I talked to Mike McMahon, he had just seen the previs for episode 209, and that was a number of months ago. That was, I think, back in November. So it's obviously probably continued on well past that. Same number of episodes for season 2 as there was in season 1. So they're well on their way into production on season 2. So I think it's very likely that the two. I don't know if we're going to get any live action shows this year, but very likely we're going to get Prodigy and Lower Decks throughout this year, and I'm hoping that by the towards the end of 2021, we'll get one of these
live action
shows.
Which out of those ones, which of those started shooting? Was it Strange New Worlds that started shooting first, but before?
No, it was Discovery season 4. Yeah.
Okay.
Discovery season 4 started shooting. Strange New Worlds, from what I gather right now, based off of some people posting stuff on Instagram, because people don't care, I guess.
Yeah.
They are in the process right now of completing most of the sets. So any of the stuff that they may or may not have filmed at this point would have been on sets that they already had built up. So they may be doing some shots or something like that, but most of the sets are still being built from what I understand. So season 4 of Discovery may potentially be the next one that we actually see. So we may be in reverse order. We may get Discovery first, then potentially Picard, and then Strange New Worlds. So it may be kind of weird, but I will say that does get me excited for 2022. So get that hype train started.
Oh my God. It's like, we're
getting everything in 22.
Oh no!
Happening in 22.
I mean, just provided they don't put everything, provided they don't put shows on at the same time. I think you and I will probably. It's like, it's like we've got like 4 shows on here at once or something. No, please don't, please don't do that. At least eke them out a little bit, But yeah, you'd think we're going to get some potentially some trailer content this year or whatever. Probably, whenever they have their mid-year Comic-Con or whatever events and so forth. I'm sure they'll be putting out trailers for it, whatever.
It's important to note, they had the Star Trek Day celebration, which was, I would say, a resounding success. New York Comic-Con was done much better. San Diego, which was their first remote attempt at doing that, was kind of a letdown, but they were still learning and figuring it out. So I'm confident this year will be good. But one of the important things to note is that Viacom CBS has hired on the same company that does Star Wars Celebration to start to put together a Star Trek celebration. So they've kind of gone away from Creation Entertainment to go into this other company, which the name is literally escaping me right now. But they are going with this other company in order to put on an official Star Trek convention, which, based, again, obviously pandemic limiting, if they're able to get that out this year, that will also be a huge time period for them to really drop a bunch of trailers, photos, updates, and all that stuff. So we're going to get a lot. This 2021 is going to be the year of animation and a lot of production news. And then 2022 is going to be all the live action stuff. Start pumped out.
It will be teased with a lot of potential this year, I think. But yeah.
Yes.
So with that in mind, I think the actual if we're talking about actual shows we might get on air for this year, I think we've a pretty good chance of getting the Orville season 3 on air this year, because I know that they were about 3/4 of the way through production of that when the pandemic hit last year. So they only had a few bits and pieces to kind of finish up with and get that sort of polished up and ready to broadcast. So I would want to hope that we might get Orville season 3 in the, fingers crossed, first half of this year.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah,
that would be good to see. Obviously,
I'll say this. I think that a lot of people think that I personally don't like the Orville because I don't talk about it, and there's a lot of if you don't like Discovery and what they're doing to Star Trek, go watch the Orville. That's real Star Trek. There's a lot of this weird us versus them kind of war between the two shows. I don't hate the Orville. I wish that the show would start to tell some really interesting and exciting stories. I think the second season in particular was much better than the first. And the only thing that I didn't like about it really is that every time I sat down to watch one of the episodes, I felt like I'd already seen it before, because it was a little bit of a recycled plots from from TNG and other Star Trek shows like Deep Space Nine specifically. But I am like, listen, I hope that the show does great, and I hope the third season does great, and I hope it doesn't get canceled. There's a big rumor about that being canceled. The show that Seth MacFarlane's out or whatever, but I hope that doesn't. I hope that's not the case. I think that the show can exist. I hope it does. Yeah,
look, I think it's definitely on the right track. I mean, as you say, I think I was starting to get a bit tired of Seth MacFarlane using the whole jar of pickles analogy or whatever all the time with the security chief. I forget her name. But yeah, it almost seems to be this year. There's also going to be a lot of Marvel content on Disney Plus. We've obviously got WandaVision on air at the moment. We've got Falcon and Winter Soldier. coming soon. I'm not sure when that's set to go on air, but I'm guessing it's probably going to be in the first half of this year. We've got the Loki series. I'm not sure.
Yes, it's going to be the first. All that stuff is the first half of this year.
Yeah.
Because the reason for that is, and also the reason why they announced all those Star Wars shows, which I'm sure we'll talk about. But I think Disney Plus and Disney in general realized that holy shit, we have a lot of content. They have a lot of great content, on Disney Plus. But the problem is unlike Netflix, where every time you log in, there's like 35 new things to watch.
Yeah,
when you logged into Disney Plus for like the whole 2019 and most of 2020, when you logged into Disney Plus, it was the same shit. It was maybe one new thing, and everyone was just waiting around for the Mandalorian to come back. So they're like, we've got to fix this. So now they're like pumping all of these shows out, like all kind of crazy. But I'm excited for it. Yeah.
And I know so many people that because of that exact reason, you go, okay, well, because there's so little content coming out, I'm just going to wait for The Mandalorian to run its course of eight episodes. I'll subscribe for 1 week, binge the whole season in a week, and then unsubscribe,
Yep, pay $15. They get your $15. And that is still money, but that's not what they want. They want you to see subscribed all the time, which, all of them are doing this, And honestly, kind of coming out of nowhere is, especially considering that it didn't even exist a couple of months ago, is the HBO Max streaming service, because it got this exclusive distribution deal with Warner Brothers for all of their Warner Brothers, movies and stuff like that. So it's got all of the DC, universe stuff, and it's going to have all the MonsterVerse stuff. It's going to have Dune on there. It's going to have all this crazy stuff. So HBO Max is going to be crushing it this year. So I'm sure Paramount Plus, which is set to go off in March. I don't know if everyone's tracking that.
Yep.
The first week of March, Paramount Plus is official. They've already updated like their YouTube channels and stuff. So CBS All Access YouTube channel is now the Paramount Plus YouTube channel.
And that's global. That's a global streaming service too, isn't it? Yeah.
That's global. Yep, it's global. It's not in every global market, but it's in a lot of them. It's in substantially more than what there was, and it's going to there will never be another situation where North Americans are watching a Star Trek show that the rest of the planet cannot watch. That won't happen again.
So does this mean that Amazon Prime and Netflix are going to lose their broadcast rights for Picard and Discovery and Lower Decks? So they're going to move across to Paramount Plus come March or whatever it is.
Well, that entirely depends, because there is still just bottom line is the fact that so it's already been over 6 months since Lower Decks, started, and here we are. They just sold the rights for international distribution to Amazon Prime, which just started, I think, like either this week or last
this week,
or something like that.
Yeah.
This week, okay. And you might say to yourself, well, why didn't they just wait until Paramount Plus came out in just another month or so? Well, the reason for that is Amazon paid a big fat check to Viacom CBS to be able to do that.
Yeah.
So they have to look at the numbers. They have to sit there and say, "Do we?"
They dropped the whole season too. They didn't eke it out.
The whole thing.
The whole thing, bang, all 10 episodes in one go. Yeah.
They dropped the whole season. So will Amazon, lose the rights for Lower Decks / Picard and Netflix for Discovery internationally? It entirely depends on whether Viacom CBS feels like they can make more money by having exclusive streaming rights, or if they're just going to want a $50 million fat check from one of them to be able to do it themselves. And that really, and it's really, that's really all it is. It's just a numbers game. And and as was explained to me by Mike McMahon, who was talking a little bit about the distribution deal but didn't mention too much about it, he was like, these things make this money, and a good portion of that money that they get from the sale of that distribution then gets pumped back into the shows. So the more money they're making from these distribution deals, the more likelihood that we're going to get more seasons. So,
yes.
And that, not to get into the whole thing where it's like, well, the money without that, they're not going to be able to make the shows. That's not what they're saying. It's just, it certainly is nice to be able to get some money from people that help pay for some of this stuff.
Absolutely. Good Tea Nice House. Thanks again for the super chat. Thank you so much. Asks WandaVision, what are your thoughts? Well, I actually haven't started watching WandaVision yet.
You're busted.
I'm busted.
Good tea, nice house.
And the reason for that is obviously all of the trailers for WandaVision have been spruiking it as essentially a parody of, 1950s or 1960s sitcom TV. So there's sort of a part of me that's going, this kind of looks a bit weird. I'm not really sure whether it doesn't look like the typical what you'd expect out of a typical Marvel series. I know, Nick, you've watched the first couple of episodes of that. And I was obviously I'm planning on catching up with that once a few more episodes are out and sort of doing the whole, binge. Because I think it's 8 episodes in the first season. I think there is for WandaVision. Is that? I think it's less than 10. I think
less than 10.
Yeah.
I don't remember how many. I think 8. I think it's 8.
I think it might. I think it might be 8. Yeah, the same as what they've been doing for Mandalorian. So yeah, I was planning on watching the whole 8 episodes in one binge session, just because I guess. Not that the trailers for the show didn't appeal to me, and I know there's going to be a very heavy sort of nostalgic element to watching these sort of essentially parodies of 1950s, 1960s, 1970s kind of TV shows. It doesn't seem like, this is my impression at least, it seems like a quite a large departure from the sort of content we're used to expecting from out of the Marvel stable. So I'm not sure whether you can comment on that, Nick, but keeping your comments sort of relatively spoiler-free.
Yeah, keeping it spoiler-free, I will say that I will say that as of right now, I love and appreciate, and I really am saying, like, I love and appreciate the attention and detail and creative craftsmanship that's going into those first 3 episodes. I watched the first 3 to make them feel like what they're trying to be, which is these sitcoms from these specific decades. We had, I believe, like a 50s, a 60s, and now a 70s from the latest one. I may have my decades wrong, but it really felt like they really, like somebody sat down and watched a bunch of, I don't know, Nick at Night or something, and just really understood, okay, this is how they made this era of television. Yeah. This is how they made this one. This is how they made this one. And the level of effort being put into there is enormous, and it's awesome. And the thing is I think we're all still pretty much on this Marvel train for the most part. None of, like, a few people have gotten off after Endgame, but most of us are still on the train. So we're all still going to kind of tune in. I would say that the gimmick of the sitcom construct, I feel like has maybe 1 or 2 more episodes in it, but they really need to start ramping up and explaining a little bit more about what's going on. Yeah. To kind of keep people excited about what's happening. I think we're going to get that in the next coming episodes.
Again, it's the mystery box thing, isn't it?
It is a mystery box, but I feel like it is a mystery box. But I think I have a little bit more faith in Feige, Feige to create the construct of a mystery box, because I just feel like he understands how to pay those things off, and Marvel loves the idea of Easter eggs that connect. Like, they're the ones that started this fucking thing. Like, everything's got to connect. Everything's connecting. We're connecting everything.
And with Infinity War and Endgame, the way they tied up all of the little threads that had appeared in other films, and nothing kind of went to waste. It was all, I think, as you said, there were some people that walked away from Marvel franchise after Endgame, but I think if that was the case, I think that's more so almost because, oh my God, this is such a satisfying conclusion to the last number of films. I am completely satisfied with what I've seen. They could end it right there, and I would be so happy, nothing was kind of left out or went to waste or whatever. I think that they're very good at paying off exactly what they know the audience want to see paid off.
Right. They understand, like we talked about earlier, like they understand, like, entertaining and engaging with a satisfying payoff. They're not trying to tell them. They get a lot of flack for this from certain creators and directors and stuff like that. They're not trying to tell these highbrow stories, and that's not a negative thing. They're creating the popcorn flick for people to sit down and watch superheroes be heroes and supervillains be villains, and having these engaging characters and having these fun mysteries that we're all on board for. And it's something easy to understand and digest and appreciate and just experience. So that's why it's like, I have faith that WandaVision will pay off. I hope that it does. If it doesn't, then I'm going to be truly, truly surprised. I really, really will be. I really doubt that they're gonna screw like this is the first official Marvel television series. They had a lot of the other ones that they licensed through like Netflix and other people like that, but this is the first one that they're really trying to push, and it's the first one on Disney Plus. I just don't think they're going to screw this up. I really don't. I think once we see, and I see people in the chat saying it's 9 episodes, so thank you all for that. Once we see all 9 episodes, I feel like it's going to be a satisfying conclusion, and these sitcom episodes that we're seeing now have a purpose that are going to be satisfied later, and it's going to be like, oh, those are some funny things that were happening there, and then the other half of the season is going to be the explanation as to what was going on. So I'm feeling very confident about it.
Yeah, it sort of almost reminds me of, I can't remember what the name of the episode was. I think it was a Next Generation episode. And this is sort of, having not watched it yet, but this is sort of where I'm leaning. I don't know what, I think it was a later, maybe season 5 or later season, where a bunch of the Next Generation crew were like kidnapped and they were hooked into some kind of virtual reality thing, and the construct they were in, they all thought they were doing something else, but they were really all hooked into a machine. Or was it a Deep Space Nine episode? I'm trying to remember. Do you remember what I'm talking about? There was like a bunch of crew where I think it was the Dominion. Was it the Dominion in DS9? They had Kira and Cisco or something, and they were kind of hooked into. They were all lying in beds in a cave, and they were hooked into like some sort of virtual reality.
I know that TNG had a couple of episodes where, like, there was that episode where the Romulans had captured Riker, and they were making him think that there was weird stuff happening. We just got schisms. People are saying it was an episode on Voyager. There's also something called The Game. The Game, I don't think he's talking about The Game. I don't think that's what you're referencing.
That was the one where they had those little head things on that.
Yeah,
it wasn't that one.
Talking about. Yeah, not that one.
It was like it's like everybody was in a universe, and things were not quite right. People were behaving incorrectly, and then by the end of the episode, you found out everybody was actually lying on these beds, plugged into some sort of machine or some sort of construct, because I think it was the Dominion was trying to extract information and find out where the I don't know, the fleet was or whatever. So they had everybody in this sort of holodeck style thingo where their brains were hooked into something. I can't remember the name of the episode, so I'm sure somebody will. Botrek says yes, it was DS9, but somebody will tell us the episode. No, it wasn't Riker in the asylum. I know the one you're talking about where he was trapped in that room or whatever.
The episode where they found the fountain. I don't know. Somebody dig into it.
Anyway, the point I was trying to make is that sort of scenario sort of seems, that's what I was sort of assuming this whole sitcom construct or something, whether we're going to find out that I don't know, Vision and Wanda are hooked into some virtual reality machine there by the I don't know, who knows.
I don't want to I'm not going to respond to you because my response is going to contain some spoilers for the first 3 episodes. Yeah, okay. I won't say anything. Okay. Nobody in the chat say anything about that. Yes. Everybody keep it zipped. Zip it. Yeah. Don't spoil it. Just zip it. The only thing I'll say is there's something going on, but it's unclear as to who's doing what and who knows what it is that's going on. Yeah. And that's all I'll say is they're definitely giving us the teases of like something's up, but you don't know what, and you're gonna have to find out, and you're gonna have to stay subscribed to Disney Plus to find out. Yeah, right. Exactly.
Of course. Yeah. And of course, we've also got the Loki series coming this year. I think that's probably more likely to sit in the second half of this year, I'm guessing, based on other content we've got coming before that. But that obviously
I think the Loki series is coming sooner than that.
Is it? Oh, okay.
I think somebody in the chat let us know. I thought it was coming. I know Winter Soldiers is coming soon, but I think Loki's is coming sooner than the second half of the year. I don't know.
Is Loki before or after Winter Soldier and Falcon?
I think Winter Soldier and Falcon is first. And then I think Loki is after that.
Yes.
And I don't know if there's a specific reason for that, other than I'm assuming they're probably. I mean, this is Marvel, so there's a reason why these shows are in this specific order beyond the fact that they were shot in this way. But I think that the release way just the way all the Marvel movies are built on top of each other. They're like, you have to watch this to know what's going on with this, to know what's going on with that. Yeah.
Andrew, thank you so much for the super chat. Andrew, your thoughts on the Borg on Discovery? Will they look better than Voyager Episode 1? I mean, I think if the Borg did appear on Discovery, I think they would just maintain the same visual look as they did on season 1 of Star Trek Picard, surely.
Exactly.
I actually heard a rumor. Somebody was asking whether or not, Osira's henchman, the character. Somebody was speculating that Osira was using Borg as those black hooded what do they call them, regulators or whatever on Discovery, but I didn't buy into that. I think
I mean that would be cool, but nah.
I think the only similarity was their voices sort of sounded a little bit Borg-like, but apart from that, I think there's no other correlation there. But yeah, I think if the Borg were to appear on Discovery, I would be surprised if they changed them any more than what they did for how we saw them on Picard season 1.
Yeah, I think the reason why they were wearing helmets was because they had a limited number of stuntmen, and they put hoods on them so they could use them in different sequences.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, yes.
They're not. The Borg drones aren't doing that. No, it's not what they're doing. I don't want. I think we had enough Borg in season 1 of Picard. I think I would like to see more of what happened to the freed Borg, obviously with I want to say Hugh, but that's not his name. Who am I thinking of?
Which Borg are you referring to? Not
the liberated Borg.
Hugh.
Is it Hugh?
Hugh, yes, Hugh.
Hugh Culber and Hugh the Borg?
Yes.
I just figured that out. I don't know. I was like, I'm thinking of Hugh. Okay, so
that's right.
I thought it was his name, but I was like, no, I'm thinking of Hugh Culbert.
Yeah.
Is it Hugh? Anyways,
yes.
So
yeah.
Hugh gone. We have this Borg crash on the planet with the other androids, which is a great place to be. Beautiful beachfront property.
Yeah.
And so they've got something going on there. I'd like to see a little bit more about the Borg in general, like as a background piece to season 2 of Picard, but they don't need to be in Discovery. And I'd like to find out maybe what happened to them.
I think Discovery did a good job in season 3 of, like, we've obviously had a lot of Klingon stuff in the first season of Discovery, and we had a lot of Borg stuff in season 1 of Picard. So I do like the aspect that they did choose in season 3 of Discovery to give us that fresh look on an antagonist for the series by making this Andorian and Orion alliance, where the Orions and the Andorians were our antagonists for the series, because obviously we saw a few Orions on Enterprise, but prior to that we never really saw them a great deal, apart from the odd slave girl, gyrating in the background of some harem somewhere. And obviously we got a few Andorian stuff on Enterprise with Shran and the interaction there with Archer and crew or whatever. But I like the fact that they did decide to, let's spice it up and let's give these two races that maybe haven't had as much screen time in the past as our antagonists for that season. But I'd like to see. I think the Klingons, because they copped such a big flack in season 1 in terms of the makeup redesign and everything, I think it would serve them well just to stay away from Klingons for a little bit. I would want to see as to know what's going on with the Cardassians. I would like to know that, and I would like to know. I'm actually quite surprised on the basis that the galaxy seemed to be operated by these as part of the Emerald Chain. These what do they call those trading ports? There was a name for them in Discovery.
The courier, something.
Yeah, they were all over the galaxy. There were these. Someone in the chat, refresh my memory. What these trading ports, the Emerald Chain trading ports. They had a name. Anyway, someone's going to type it in any second now.
Yes,
these
we'll get it
these
as
big
soon as the chat catches up to us.
These big marketplaces. where all the trading went down, all the missions were handed out, and everybody was doing all their trading. I'm incredibly surprised that we never saw one bloody Ferengi amongst these. You would think these environment exchanges. Thank you, Ivan. Thank you, Bjorn. Exchanges. Yes, I'm incredibly surprised we never saw any Ferengi in any of these. It seemed like to me these would be places where Ferengi would gather from all over the galaxy, considering it's all about trade and commerce and everything, but we never saw one.
I mean, it is entirely... The thing is, the Ferengi suck at fighting.
Yes, they do.
So it is entirely possible that one of the first people that the Emerald Chain stomped out was the Ferengi, because they would have been market competition and trying to sneak in on their, courier network turf with these exchanges and stuff like that. So it is possible that they just were like, you can suck it, Ferengi, and they just stomped them out. Because really, I mean, like, if you're fighting Orions and Andorians and whatever technology that they were able to scrounge together at the beginning, it is likely that they would be better at fighting and be more equipped to deal with the Ferengi than some of the other ones. But that's also assuming that the Ferengi even really made it to that point, because it's not quite clear, because obviously Star Trek Online has this whole thing where Ferengi start to freely join the Federation following the example of, Captain Nog. And all that stuff, but that's just beta canon, so we don't really know what happened to them, in the future, even prior to the dealings with the Cold War, the temporal Cold War and stuff. So they may not even have made it as an empire up to that point at the, so who knows? But I do feel like if they had made it to that point, the Emerald Chain would have just nixed that, would have just completely nixed them entirely, or they could have been a part of the Emerald Chain, but I guess they would have mentioned them, but I don't know. But I would like to see what a Ferengi looks like. I want to see two species that really stand out to me, that I really, really want to see with the new Kurtzman era of Star Trek, which is the Gorn. I want to see a reimagined Gorn, and not no fucking crazy weird CGI lizard like they had in Enterprise.
Yes, that was a bit hokey, wasn't it? That was just like, ugh.
That was terrible. It was bad for them. It was bad for 2004 or 5 or whatever that it came out. That was bad.
Yes.
I don't want to see that. I want to see a reimagined Gorn, and I want to see what a reimagined Ferengi looked like. I want to see these new artists and makeup artists and stylists come up with to make these species look a little bit different and kind of modernize them and stuff like that, make them appear more threatening. Like a Ferengi, they were obviously, I mean, everybody pretty much knows this, but the Ferengi obviously were intended to be the big bad of the next generation, but they came across as comical, so they became a bit more comical in nature. And they've forever been that way, these kind of sniveling little they became sniveling people, but they're also very shifty. But like, if you have this new style of people that are working right now from Secret Hideout, reimagine-ish what the Ferengi are and what they look like and how they act, that could be pretty dangerous. I'd like that.
It would be.
Sure.
I have to thank Good Tea Nice House, who did answer our question. Our man Bashir, season 4, episode 9, Bashir and Garrick in the holodeck was kind of like a James Bond spoof. That wasn't probably the one I was talking about in terms of the one we were talking about before, about them being locked in a cave and interrogated by the Dominion or whatever it was. But I remember that being a good episode for sure. And and thank you, Snoopy McQueen. Cannot wait for the Ben Kenobi series. Cannot wait for Strange New Worlds and Discovery. Will Starfleet get back to Earth?
There's a lot to unpack there. Let's go in reverse.
Let's go in reverse order. So we at the end of season 3, we saw the fact that Trill had rejoined the Federation, and we saw that Navarre was considering rejoining the Federation. But interestingly enough, they decided to omit the fact that what do they call it? The Earth something Defense Force or something?
Earth Defense Force. Yeah.
They left that one out as to whether they were considering rejoining or not. So
what I'll say is, I think that Starfleet HQ is going to relocate itself back to Earth, and I think it's likely going to happen off camera. It's just going to be something that we'll just roll into with the fourth season. They're not going to go through the whole migration back to Earth thing. It's just going to be they're back at Earth, and we're rebuilding the Federation, and here's the new Federation Council. Here's the president. We're doing this whole thing.
Yes.
That's what I think.
It'll kind of be one of those situations where it happens in between seasons. Whatever it is. 6 months have passed or whatever. And this is what happened. In between season 3 and 4.
Yes. I agree.
In terms of Strange New World, I think Strange New Worlds is one of those shows where once I saw those short treks, I think it was more so the short treks that solidified it in my mind. Is that yes, obviously we saw the scenes in season 2 with Pike and Number One and Spock and everything, but it wasn't until that those couple of short treks came out, they go, oh my God, this is totally a show here. And although historically speaking, I'm against prequels. I think prequels limit storytelling because they lock you into having to obey whatever canon has come before. You're more pigeonholed in terms of you have to fit in between this event and that event, and you kind of, if you vary in any way outside of that, fans lose their shit because you can't mess with canon. So historically speaking, I'm not a fan of prequel shows. I prefer to move forward in the timeline and get into undiscovered country, so to speak. But that being said, after seeing the short treks for Strange New Worlds and Pike and crew on the Enterprise, it's like I would totally watch this show and I would totally enjoy this show. And I was actually really excited about the announcement for Strange New Worlds.
Yeah, I agree with you 100% there. I mean, they have to be very smart because one of the primary reasons for them to take Discovery to the future is so that it would stop, and I'm going to put this in air quotes because it's very damaging canon, because people have wildly different opinions on that.
Yes.
Whatever. We're not going to get into that. But that was why they moved it into the future. But now they're like, yeah, but also we're going to make a show that's even closer connected to canon, and we're going to give it to the Pike and the Enterprise a few years before Kirk is supposed to take command and the original series is supposed to take place.
Yep.
Now, there's a couple of things that they could do with that. I think the easiest way for them to just do this show is acknowledge the fact that the multiverse exists in a more prevalent way. They've already alluded to that very heavily inside of Discovery season.
With Kovich, yeah.
Yeah, Kovich was talking about it nonstop, and we got our reference to the Kelvin universe for that matter. They leaned into it a lot with what was going on, inside of Discovery season 3. So it is possible, other than what I said earlier with my theory about Georgiou, it could be possible that her arrival back in time then creates a branching timeline, and now everything is open. At that point, everything's open. They can change whatever they want. And that would be very easy. It's the easiest thing to do. Yeah. The other option is they could make it so that they go on a 5-year deep space mission, which takes them super far away from everything else that we've ever known before, and it allows it to just exist in this 5-year mission. That's also a very easy option. They could go with either one.
Absolutely.
But I agree with what you're saying. I like the idea of moving forward, but Anson Mount fucking nailed the role.
He knocked it out of the park, didn't he?
He just crushed it. And honestly, he could, and it wasn't even him playing Pike. It wasn't the Pike role. It was Anson Mount on set playing this Starfleet. They could have given him a totally different name, and I think people's reaction would have been the same. You know, it was just, give us more of that guy in that bright orange uniform, that, and his beautiful, salt and pepper haircut. I want to see him doing some stuff.
Because I think when you think about a Starfleet captain, right, and I think you have to have this in a tangible quantity, and that is gravitas. You got to have that gravitas, and Pike had that gravitas, without a doubt. And I think And I think post Vihari, I think Saru certainly, had that gravitas as well as the captain. I think pre Vihari, maybe Saru was second guessing himself a little bit and was a little bit, still a bit, unsure of himself. But I think he came to the forefront when he took captaincy.
He was a little gun shy. Yeah.
But yeah, look, I mean, based on what we've seen in season 2 of Discovery and based on what we've seen in those short treks, yeah, give us more of Anson Mount in the captain's chair without a doubt. I think that's something.
Well, the other thing that they could do, and now I'm just literally theorizing here on the live stream, during our discussions, which is it will be a lot of fun if they go with the branching timeline construct, and that's the timeline that we're in with the Strange New World show. If they go with that construct, then they can set it up so that Pike doesn't wind up in the beeping wheelchair. And they could work it in a different way where now his future has changed because where his present timeline has been altered by the arrival of Georgiou, and she's going to make changes, and that's going to cause them to branch out. And now it could still happen, but now he has the potential to stop it from happening, which would make for a very interesting plot points. Yeah, that would. I don't know. That would be kind of cool. I kind of hope they do that. I know people are going to be really mad about that, but I kind of hope that's what they do. I don't know.
I mean,
we'll see what happens.
I think it could potentially work well both ways because there is a certain interesting factor that I find quite intriguing as to how you conduct yourself as captain of a starship, knowing that you're going to be dead, or not dead, but you're going to be in a wheelchair, completely incapacitated, with your face drooling off within the next 10 years or something?
I think it's even less than that.
It's like is it like 7 years or something?
Quick. Yeah, he gets screwed up quick.
So yes, so yeah, how do you make decisions and how do you conduct yourself with the knowledge that say from season 1 of Strange New Worlds, in 7 years' time you're going to end up in a wheelchair, a dribbling mess. How do you conduct yourself? How do you let that govern the way you live your life? How you command your crew? How you make decisions? All that sort of stuff. There's an interesting element to that as well, I think.
Well, and I think that I agree with you 100% there. And I think that if they're really smart about this, there's a strong opportunity for them to play that storyline up, but then also they could do both. They could play that storyline up for the majority of this season and then also do a branching timeline construct because and they very smartly did not tell us where Georgiou went when she went through the Guardian. And for all we know, she could just magically suddenly appear on the bridge of the Enterprise with Pike just sitting there. Like she could just appear there, and that immediately changes everything,
And there's been no talk of whatsoever about what timeline it takes. It's completely open slated in terms of what time frame the show could take place in.
Definitely, yeah. The only real kind of idea is that because they were talking about it being a Georgiou, Michelle Yeoh starring along Shazad Latif, who played Tyler. They were going to be in the show together, so everyone assumes that it's going to be in the TOS era. But that was a year and a half ago.
Yep.
So they could have really changed that. They could have completely changed that at this point. We have no idea.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, they could really lean into this and be really smart about how they go about this. And I don't know, man. I feel like they really alluded a lot to the multiverse theory in season 3 more than they've ever done in other Star Treks, minus obviously a lot of the mirror universe kind of episodes, and then that one weird episode Parallels where everything was all over the place. But we don't talk about Parallels. It's gonna make our head. Let's not talk about that.
I mean, whether they could even do an element. Not that I watch it, but I'm aware of it. What's the DC show? The one where they time travel around the place. Legends of something or other.
Legends of Tomorrow.
Legends of Tomorrow. Yeah. It could even be something along those lines where they're time jumping between, and going around fixing up, incursions in the timeline.
Little sliders.
A little bit sliders, a little bit quantum leap. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. I don't hate that idea. I will say, I just reading the chat here. Tony Fabulous says Pike's destiny is called because of the time crystal with 2 wheelchair emojis, which is so rude. So rude. But I'll say, like, yeah, the his future was called because of the time crystal, but time, if we've learned anything from Star Trek, is time travel is wonky and things can change. So there's no reason to say that it can't change.
This
but
is true.
These are just theories. We're just talking about
we're just throwing it out there. Yeah. I also want to acknowledge in the live stream today the unfortunate passing of one of science fiction's great actors and characters, Mira Furlan, who played Delenn on Babylon 5. I'm a huge Babylon 5. I think outside of Star Trek, I think Babylon 5 is one of my certainly top 5 sci-fi series of all time. And she unfortunately passed away, I think this week sometime. I'm not sure the reasoning. I don't think it was COVID. I'm not sure what the actual situation was. But for all of you Babylon 5 fans out there, I thought I'd just acknowledge her great contribution to the science fiction franchise. And she was also in Lost too. I think she was one of the people, or I can't remember whether she was one of the others or one of the people on the back end of the plot. She was the crazy woman with the rifle on Lost as well. Like,
she was a crazy woman with a rifle in black.
Yes.
Yes. Don't ask me to explain it anymore. That's all I know.
Yes.
Yeah. Which is very sad to see that she had passed.
Yeah, and obviously there's been a few actors, I think, from Babylon 5. Good point, Glenn. Yes, now Delenn has too gone beyond the edge of the galaxy as to join up with Andreas Katsoulis, who was Jakar, who also played Tomalak, the Romulan Tomalak on Next Generation as well.
Yep.
And also, I believe the Doctor, I think it was Dr. Franklin. I think that was his name. Also, I think passed away. Is that correct? So there's
I'll have to check it.
Yeah, there's been a few.
There's quite a few.
A few B5 actors who unfortunately left us in the last few years or so. So yeah, acknowledge to them and the great work they did on B5 and other sci-fi shows as well.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, like, actors like that, like you bring up, like, like a character of Tomalak, who is an icon, who had a few scenes. Like, you mean, he's in a few episodes, few scenes, but it's the actor and the actress that brings these characters to life, and then also allows us to remember who they were decades later, even though they had a small role. Like, even just to guest appearances and stuff like that. Sometimes, like, these characters really stick with us, and that's all because of who that individual is and their capabilities. So
absolutely,
yeah, I mean, it's a huge loss for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's as you say, it's always a testament to them as actors when, they can come in for just, I think Tom Locke was only in maybe 2, 3 at the most Next Generation episodes. I think there was a couple there, but obviously made a really big stamp on the show and memorable characters.
Yeah, huge impact on it. Just he did a huge impact and reframed and really created the persona of a Romulan, captain / admiral, or whatever term you want to use there. I know they have different ranks, and the Romulan Star Empire, but really created this kind of arrogant, dangerous persona that other actors and actresses who were coming in to play Romulan commanders then emulated and repeated that kind of, that persona. So and it was just this small role, but it had this huge impact, and that's all a testament to the actor. Yeah. It's great.
And I think I knew he was in Enterprise as well. I think there was an episode of Enterprise. I think it was the one where there was I think it was the first they did first contact with a race that had like 3 genders or something, and Trip
look it up.
and Trip went a bit crazy and tried to free this. There was like a species that used the 3rd gender to procreate or something, and Trip taught. He get messed up with the pronouns again. Him or her or them.
Yeah, I'm gonna.
He was also
Enterprise. Was he in there? Let's
take
a look here.
He was. I can't remember the episode's name, but I think it was the one with the 3 genders. Where
he played a Vissian Captain Drennick. in a Star Trek Enterprise second season episode.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
So yeah, obviously,
wow.
yeah, a lot of memorable roles from B5 actors as well as other series as well.
Yeah.
Yes,
absolutely.
yes, Glenn, you're right. He was the lead scientist, and it was a whole series with him and Archer in a shuttle pod, scanning some sort of gas giant cogenitor. Yes, Bjorn, that's right.
Yeah, that's it.
Yes,
yep,
the cogenitor. That was the episode. Yeah,
yep. Yeah. He looked completely. I'm looking at his makeup right now as a shot. He looked completely different.
Yeah.
In that role, and he had played obviously a completely different character from what he was playing before.
Correct. Yeah, he looked more like himself. He was identifiable. I think it was one of the minimal makeup jobs, I guess, for the actor in that case.
Yep.
So apart from that, we've obviously, there's obviously a multitude of Star Wars shows on the cards and everything that are, coming that are probably too many to even talk about. Maybe we'll save that for the next live stream, I think, because there's so many.
The next one. That's a whole
we'll leave that to the next one because I think there's so many different shows coming to discuss and everything. Although I will just briefly say, I think when Snoopy dropped the super chat just before he was asking about the Ben Kenobi series, one exciting element I'm very excited, looking forward to then, is the fact that Hayden Christensen is going to be back for that, and whether we're going to see Hayden Christensen and Ewan McGregor sort of in de-aged, makeup with some flashbacks to events from the Clone Wars in that circumstance, or what. I mean, I would completely lose my shit, I think, if there was a flashback scene which had Hayden Christensen, Ewan McGregor, and even Rosario Dawson as Ahsoka in a Clone Wars flashback. I think fans would just lose their mind, I think, if they did that.
I mean, yeah, if they had Obi-Wan, Ewan McGregor, and the Obi-Wan makeup with the Clone Wars
armor. Outfits, yeah, the costumes,
God, I'm gonna lose my mind. Yes. And that's the thing, is like that is such a strong possibility, because Disney, as they have shown in Mandalorian and I think with their Marvel stuff, that we're getting, is they're like, we know what the fans want to see, so we're just gonna do that. And I think it's so easy to have a dream sequence where maybe Obi-Wan is meditating or sleeping or something like that, and he just is remembering a conversation or a fight or something like that a battle or something, and he's in the ghetto. Like, can you I can't even imagine. I can't even imagine.
Although I'm not sure how would they do? How would that have to be tricky with the if they did Ahsoka de-aged or whatever, because obviously Rosario Dawson as she appeared in Mandalorian, fantastic. But if you're going to put her in a Clone Wars flashback, you'd almost need to do something like what they did in the first Captain America movie with
where they put her face on a younger actress
you know how they put Chris Evans' face on the skinny guy's body or whatever, because obviously Ahsoka's only meant to be like sort of 15 or 16 or something during the Clone Wars, so you'd need to almost that would be challenging, but I think they're up for the task, based on what we've seen with the various Marvel films and the de-aging and all that sort of process. I think that they'd be up for it.
I think so too, and that would be I think bringing in Ahsoka would be great, because they obviously have the talent and the capability on hand right now. Even if they don't bring her in, I think that a flashback sequence to them talking, because the thing is obviously, in terms of lore, they can't have old Obi-Wan and Darth Vader appear on set together. Yeah, but you're also not bringing in Hayden Christensen just to put him inside of a suit and have him, cover up his face the entire time. Exactly. So there's clearly an intent to create sequences where younger version of Obi-Wan and a younger version of, Anakin Skywalker are hanging out, doing stuff, and hanging out and doing whatever they're doing. Yeah,
some sort of as you say, sometimes a dream sequence, some kind of meditation sequence where, because obviously we know that, let's face it, Obi-Wan's spending a lot of time in his little igloo on Tatooine. He's either he's meditating, or he's having a chat with Qui-Gon, learning how to become one with the Force and everything. Right. So as we know, at the end of whatever it was, Revenge of the Sith, that Yoda is sort of teaching Obi-Wan how to talk to Qui-Gon or whatever it is to become, one. There's
become a Force ghost.
Yeah,
Essentially.
he become a Force ghost. We know that he's got to be sitting around that igloo on Tatooine, meditating and doing all that sort of stuff, becoming more enlightened or whatever the case may be. So there's so much scope there, I think, for obviously not only flashbacks with him and young Anakin or whatever during the Clone Wars era, but also I think even Liam Neeson said he'd be completely up for coming back coming back for some Qui-Gon Force Ghost appearances sort of thing. So I think that's all stuff we've got. All stuff we've got to look forward to if that in fact is how it plays out for the Obi-Wan series.
Yeah, I'm super pumped. I getting Hayden back, Christensen back is well deserved, long overdue. One of the things that I appreciate about as intense as the Star Wars fandom can be, and Star Trek fandom is really the same way, which is that we oftentimes hate new things that were being shown, and then later on we're like, actually, we really love it.
Yes.
And Hayden Christensen got completely bullied, through his entire existence because of the role. But now people are like, no, we love him. Please, bring him
why?
back.
Because now people have got the hindsight of having seen the sequel trilogy, and it's like, maybe the prequel trilogy wasn't as bad as we thought.
They're gonna say, the sequel trilogy wasn't as bad as I remember it being. Like, they're gonna say the same thing. It happens literally every time. That's the one constant, which is that if people that hate things now, in time, they're like, actually, I really appreciate this. And I also would agree that his character has, gotten a lot of goodwill because of the Clone Wars series, and they've expanded on the role of young, Anakin Skywalker, Jedi Anakin Skywalker, which does have a correlation to what Hayden brought to the live action stuff. So there is a connection there. So I understand that, but people really want him back, and I'm so glad that they got him to agree to it, because I know he's been starting to appear in some of the conventions recently in the last couple of years, but he was kind of initially like really against going, but now he's starting to pop up, and I'm just glad that he's back, and I can't wait to see what they do, and they've got to get him on screen together.
Yeah, and look, as you said, Hayden Christensen isn't a bad actor. He just had to work with some really, really cheesy dialogue, which I think a lot of people probably lumped those two elements together, and they thought, well, it's somewhat cheesy dialogue with the actor, but he's actually not a bad actor. I think with the right writing in this show, I think a lot of that. I'm not going to say bad blood, but what's another word for bad blood? Could be undone. A lot
of the animosity, the tension.
Yeah, exactly.
Totally.
Yeah. I'm completely looking forward to the Obi-Wan series, and I'm not what year is it? Is it early 2022? They were speculating for that release for that show. I can't remember. I remember hearing it somewhere, but not anything.
Obi-Wan series release date. We're googling it right now. Here we go.
Yep.
I'm reaching around my microphone to get to my keyboard. Sometime late 2021, early 2022. So if I had to guess, it'll probably be early 2022 just to free up that scheduling time frame and kind of spread their content out a little bit, because they already got the Book of Boba Fett coming out.
Yep, that's going to be December of this year, I believe. And we may even get the Obi-Wan series potentially before season 3 of Mando, even maybe. I don't know.
It's very possible. Yeah, it's very, very possible. I mean, again, like they're like we talked about earlier, like Disney and Disney Plus are very keenly aware of the content churn, so they're really being very deliberate. Like, I don't find it a coincidence that like WandaVision, for instance, is 9 episodes, so that it will absolutely bleed over for a 3-month cycle as opposed to just 2 months.
Exactly. Yes, like, they're very cunning like that. Yes, you need to subscribe twice, not just once, but we're gonna make sure that you got to do it twice for 2.
Yes, right. They're very aware, and I'm sure they're gonna space these things out in a way that it kind of forces people to be like, well, I can either go like once every other month and then like what you're trying to do, where it's like I'll wait the 3 months, then I'll subscribe, and then I'll wait another 3 months, and then I'll subscribe. But even then, now they're getting you, maybe 3 or 4 times throughout the year where you're having to pay them.
Yes.
But most people are probably just going to pay it for the year and just, be like, all right, I'll just watch the rest of this content throughout the year. So they're being very smart about it.
They are. Indeed.
They are.
Indeed. Well, on that note, I think we've probably talked everybody's ear off enough this evening. Well, I mean, as you know, we tend to do these live streams about once every 5 or 6 weeks or something. I think so. No doubt we'll be hook into another one in sometime around the same sort of time frame. But I'd like to thank everybody for coming along and for being involved in the chat, and thank you for all the super chats and everything. No doubt Nick and myself will be putting out all of our usual content over the next weeks and so forth, whether it be Star Trek or other various different sci-fi franchises as they come out. Mm-hmm. Thank you again, Nick, so much for joining me today in the live stream, and thanks everybody for coming.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
No worries. And on that note, we will see you guys next time for the next live stream, and we'll see you very soon for our next videos.